I think the primary reason for that is that the ethnic communities tend to be homogenous, relatively homogenous ethnically. So there's just not a whole lot of opportunities for people of different ethnicities to mingle. I think that if that were the case, that there'd be a lot more interracial marriages, and there would be maybe not as I think there'd be more. I think another, statistically speaking, there's probably some sort of bias that people have in terms of, or maybe also ethnical preference in who they see themselves with. I'm not sure how much that ends up changing the bottom line, though. I think that it does have a little bit to do with it. That the cultural, I think it has more to do with the eroticization of Asian women than it does with the kind of emasculation of Asian men. I think one could look at say, for example, with maybe there is something to that, because you have black women tend to you don't see a whole lot of black women with white guys or Asian guys.
Yes, absolutely. I even started out when I was younger. My mom would tell me just only marry or date even Asian Americans, preferably Taiwanese Americans like me, so that I guess we could share that culture and that background, and also so she can be able to talk to them. But I think I did start out dating mostly Asian Americans, and then later on I found, for some reason I just wasn't that into some of them. And I started, dating Papas and dating white guys after that. So it kind of was a progression, and then, but even now that even my aunties in Taiwan found out, I'm getting a divorce, they're like, oh, that's why you should go back to dating Asians.
Well, first of all, people are used to what they're used to. I mean, people tend to stay with their own ethnicity. They feel comfortable. They understand the rules. They don't have to wonder if they're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or offend somebody, because they kind of already know what the rules are. And it just makes sense, really, that most people would do that. I feel very fortunate that my wife was accepting enough that I could do that. It was harder on her side than it was for me, because, like I said, it had already happened in my family. It hadn't in her family. But it takes a little more work also. I had to learn about her culture. I had to, she would take me into family events, and she would have to explain things to me, sometimes something from another language she'd have to explain, or the way things were in the Philippines where her family grew up. So it took more learning on my side. Since she actually was born here and grew up here, she understood, kind of white America for the most part. But I didn't understand her culture. And there was a time when she wasn't sure if it was going to work out, I remember. And I had to convince her, no, it'll work, really, it'll work. So he wanted to break up with me. I'm like, no, I love you, I want to stay with you. And so she said, okay, all right. So glad we did. It's been 15 years now we've been married. Yeah, I would say, couple things. First of all, the most important thing that we want them to pass down has to do with their relationship with God. We're Christian, and that's our most important value that we want them to have. Past that, anything culturally, we want them to be able to identify some with the Filipino side, and so that's why they see their grandparents. Over this summer, we went to the Philippines for the first time ever, and so they got to see a little bit about, you know, where their grandparents came from. And the food, they don't really know the language, but they know a couple of words here and there. At least somewhat to be able to identify with that heritage. And because they grew up in the United States, then they already identify with most of what goes on here.
I would do it at an early age so they get used to it, because what happened with me was I totally rebelled because my mom started pushing me like really late in the game. Like I was already like around a teenager by the time she was like, "Oh, you have to go to Chinese school now," and I was like, I don't want to go to Chinese school. So yeah, that was definitely something I would want my kids to do. If they, you know, if we have that opportunity, that'd be great to have that. Yeah, I would definitely. I find that important to maintain the roots, to remember where we came from, to know, you know, especially from an immigrant family, how hard that struggle was, and that, you know, of course, like, it's kind of like what my parents did to me, where it's like, you know, you don't really know how hard it is until you are a parent, and especially in a different place. So I would want my kids to be grateful and to know that they're privileged to be here, and to have an education, and to, you know, be in a much more open society than we were even when I was a kid. So definitely would like them to know more about that.
I would have no preference. I would want them to date people that it would. Let me rephrase that. I have no preference in terms of race. I would be just as happy if they dated someone who is black, who's Asian, who's it would make no difference. It's who that person is and what their values are that's important to me.
Well, that's hard to say. You know, it's been said so many times that people get tired of it, but you kind of always have to work at it, and you have to work at getting to know each other. You know, you don't really want to, for any couple, you don't want to get to where, you know, the guy does his own thing and she does her own thing, and you're just kind of married and legally, but you don't really like get together and do things together a lot. You know what I mean? And that takes the work of saying, okay, so hey, let's hang out together, let's spend time together, and why do you do that? And talking and communicating things. You know, like, why did I hurt your feelings when I said that? And having to talk about sometimes racial things. Of, oh well, this happened to me a long time ago, and that brings people closer. And the same with kids. That, you know, right so far my kids haven't had really any issues with ethnic problems, but it likely will happen at some point, and kind of to be around and available to help them through it, you know, if or when that happens. Yeah, I mean, we live in a really good multicultural mix here. San Jose is really good. Over in Scotts Valley where I live, it's a lot more white people actually. But if we were to go to another part of the United States, there are a lot more biases that they would have to deal with that right now they don't. So I just think that it takes work and it takes communication to have a good family. And for both couples to say, you know what, you're not any less because you're a mix of cultures. You know, God made you the way you are, and you're wonderful.
One would be to embrace the culture of the other person, and that's an important part of accepting who they are. And if that is something that is easier said than done in some cases, but it is a necessary part of loving someone for who they are, because they're part of who they are is their culture. So I don't have any. I don't think I have any other bits of wisdom related to that.
Well, I think that no matter what you do, you're going to be judged or stereotyped. So just keep doing it. Just keep being you and know yourself, know your own identity. If you're part of a couple, bring some of that into your kids, into the relationship, because it only enriches it. Both your own experience and the kids' experience growing up, and having those roots are so important. So I definitely think that keeping in touch with yourself and your innermost roots, and also passing them along it's a great accomplishment. It would be a great accomplishment.